All right, the I Am Rapaport podcast is sponsored by Casper Mattresses. We love our Casper mattresses at the I Am Rapaport podcast. Casper Mattress is an award-winning mattress company that makes the most ridiculously relaxing, supportive mattresses sold directly to the consumers. Trust me, I sleep on one every night. The Casper mattress is available in 6 sizes and has a 10-year full warranty. 10 fucking years. It's made and stitched right here in the United States. Free 2 to 5 day shipping in the United States and Canada. And in New York City, you could get it the day of. You have 100 nights to sleep on this mattress for free. If you do not like it, they will refund. They will come pick up your mattress for free. 100 nights. Go to Casper.com and save $50 using the promo code Rapaport. R-A-P-A-P-O-R-T. Casper Mattresses. We love them. All right, this is not a test. I'm about to talk to fucking Marty Scorsese about Raging Bull. This is not a test.
Hello?
Marty, it's Michael Rapaport.
Oh, hi, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Oh, good working, busy. Where are you, New York or L.A.?
I'm in Los Angeles right now. Are you in New York?
Yeah, so what are you doing?
So I'm doing something to celebrate because it's... I have a bunch of them. Like, it's hard to say one, but Raging Bull, it's the 35th anniversary. I don't even know if you're aware of it. It was released 35 years ago. And
wow.
the movie means so much to me and to so many people. So I was doing like a sort of a, like a round table on it. We had a little screening of the film, and I just wanted to ask you some questions.
All right.
I got to talk to some great
go ahead.
First question I wanted to ask you is, I know it came out 35 years ago, and I know you guys were working on it a few years before that. In looking back on that film, what did you take away, as a filmmaker from the process of making Raging Bull and that time? And the idea of even trying to make a film like that in this day and age, like, what do you remember and what did you take away from it when you think of that film?
Well, the film was made for me under special circumstances, and ultimately, I think we played it out completely in terms of, I know Bob as an actor and me as a filmmaker. I mean, we just played everything out. We just put everything we knew into it, and sort of the end of one thing and maybe the beginning of another. I wasn't even sure what I was going to do for the rest of my life, quite honestly, after that. So it was basically, as they use the term now, game changer, but a game changer mainly for me. I don't know about Bob, but certainly for me.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Like, what was going on that you were sort of at that point to sort of like, just sort of give everything of yourself of it? Because, honestly, when I look at that film, and I've watched it so many times, and, sometimes I watch it just as a fan, and sometimes I watch it as an actor, and sometimes I'm like, I just look at the cinematography. There's so many layers in it, and there's so much texture to the sound, to the camera movements. What was going on with you where you just said, I didn't even know if I was what you were going to do with the rest of your life? Like what do you mean by that?
Well, I don't know if I was going to make films anymore.
Right.
And, I didn't know if I would have the passion again to make a picture. What I mean is that part of it's complex because part of me wanted to be a film director who could make pretty much, any story or different genres. The other part of me was more into a personal style of filmmaking that was more European or Scandinavian or, I don't know, Asian, Japanese, that sort of thing. There's big influences. And then, of course, there was Cassavetes, which was the main Cassavetes, and of course, towering over all of that was Kazan.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, where was I to go ultimately with all these influences? But prior to that, I mean, after doing right around the time of doing New York, and Last Waltz was a period of experimenting and trying things, failing, succeeding in certain places where you didn't think you would, and ultimately trying to find a way to feel strongly again about making pictures.
Right.
After New York, I didn't feel that I would be able to go on a set and make a movie. or go on location. I was really concerned about, could I ever care about not the subject matter, but the process itself and what you have to go through to put myself on the line, everything on the line. That includes, your health and, it sounds crazy, but your health, your money, your family, everything for a project. And the one that came to mind for me was Gangs of New York. I was preparing for that, but my personal life became very difficult, and I almost had bad accidents, and basically accidents meaning I was just depleted and in the hospital a lot. And then finally, Bob pushed me to make Raging Bull. He had been asking me for years, and we've been trying in different scripts and that sort of thing, or different script, I should say. And finally, I said I kind of understood that everything I was looking for, the struggle I was having, was what the movie's about.
Right.
And was about learning to learn again. Put it that way. Because every time you go, you try to do something, it's as if you never did it before. It was a humbling experience because you say, okay, now I can start all over. And then after this, I can start over again if I can. If not, I'll do something else. I don't know. And so then things changed, and I put everything I could into the picture, and in every way. But basically, it was about finding that soul again.
I got you. Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, I had a bit of it in The Last Waltz, but The Last Waltz is primarily, these incredible performers.
Right.
New York, I did some interesting things, but I felt that I could have been more rigorous in the approach in certain aspects, and I was disappointed myself with the results. I'm not saying the actors weren't good, or believe me, they were the cameraman, Laszlo Kovacs, the production design, everything, the music. It's just something I wanted to try that I don't know if I ever reached, and I was disappointed in myself for that. You see,
I got you. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then I acted out.
Right. Would you consider doing something as small and as intimate in this climate of making movies and where you are? Would you ever consider saying, like doing something as
sure.
You would,
yeah.
huh?
Always, yeah. No, in fact, I thought Departed was, but then it became bigger.
Yeah, right.
It got bigger as we were shooting it. But actually, it's not that big if you look at the shots and the scenes. Also, not Hugo. Wolf of Wall Street, no. Oh, this new one, Silence.
Yes.
That has it's in the 17th century, so in the countryside in Nagasaki, outside of Nagasaki. So you're forced to think in different scale, on a different scale. You see. And so that is a big struggle, and was something I was looking forward to for a long time, in a good and I should say careful way. It's a big test.
Right.
Because of that, I was trying that. But there's no doubt I've tried it. That's why I've tried a couple of pilots.
Right.
Shoot quickly. I mean, Boardwalk Empire was pretty big in a sense. Vinyl, though, I think is more controlled in terms of how should I say? It's crazier and wilder, but that reflects the state of mind of the guys putting the music together and the musicians and that sort of thing. And New York in 1973, which is when I made Mean Streets. So it's crazier and wilder, but on the other hand, it gave me, the energy was so strong, and the actors were so good, and the writing and the music, and I just, it was a joy, it was a joy. And that made me realize, okay, I could do something in 28 days or 30 days, and, it doesn't have to, it doesn't have to, but I'm aiming towards that kind of thing. I do get seduced by seduced is not the right word, but movies like The Aviator, spectacle. Movies, they were making movies in Hollywood, and the color and the airplanes, and I did get Gangs, but Gangs of New York was not. Gangs of New York was something that was something that was planned all the way back 74, 75, 76. And it eventually became the movie it became. But that was meant to be big and sprawling, is the word. Sprawling, crazy like the city itself, but it took years to get it done. Anyway,
and my final question, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you doing this, and because I don't want to keep you long, because honestly, Marty, I think that every year should be a sort of celebration of Raging Bull. I'm trying to get a statue built. I'm kidding. But,
oh God,
no, I'm just kidding.
You guys pull it together for me, will you? They don't show it on TCM. Maybe once every few years for Oscar time, but they usually put it at 1:00 in the morning because they claim it's too violent. But they show Mean Streets, at 3:30 in the morning, which it should be, I think.
I mean, in this day and age, what people could look at on their phone is way worse than anything you've ever made.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know.
You know. But so just to tell you this. So obviously, I've watched the film, a bunch of times. And when I watched it with a live audience just the other day, I thought it was interesting because when I first saw it, I was young, so I didn't know what was going on. But I'm curious, because when I watch it with the live audience, up until the Jake LaMotta character gets violent with his wife, where that obviously nothing's no longer funny. There's so much humor in the film.
Yes, I know. I was just talking to some people now about the same kind of thing. This is the kind of humor, it's New York. Italian Jewish humor, which is how I grew up.
And for me, the humor comes from up until it gets the physical
ugly
stuff.
Yeah,
then it's no longer funny. But his frustration, like that can be funny when somebody's so frustrated and someone can't see anything.
The absurdity of it.
The absurdity.
You get so angry. Yeah, and the humor is in the anger. You can laugh at yourself. If you get to that point where you can laugh at yourself, it's good. But that doesn't mean the frustration doesn't go away.
Right. Were you guys aware of that? Like, I mean, it's hard. I know it's so long ago, and obviously you've done so many. Were you aware of that, the humor in Raging Bull while you were making it? Like, or is it something?
I think so. I think we started to we just reacted the way we used to react. I mean, the way I normally react to it, the way I grew up in the streets, in my household that I was in. You just reacted to what was genuinely funny about being alive,
right?
About trying to make a life. And it's always about loss of money, this, power, all kinds of stuff. Things that upper classes, I guess, don't really. I don't know. But in the world I grew up in, the humor was very basic and came from real situations, very real situations, and the irony of things. The irony about how other people lived and who said what about whom and how could they speak that way and who owes who money and it goes on like that and this sort of thing. And so it all came from that. And also growing up around the time of the great golden age of television with your show of shows and all the great the Jewish comedy. And you see them acting it out. You see them up there. You see Caesar, Imogen Coca. You see, written by these extraordinary writers, other shows. All this sort of humor was really very alive because those shows were live. You see, I'm talking about 1950 to 56. I mean, it's a very special time. The humor of Smith and Dale coming out of which became like the Sunshine Boys. This to me is like it's just being a human being and expressing how you feel, and the humor and the irony comes out of that. So we knew it at the time, but we didn't know it'd be a funny movie. We didn't think it was funny. We just thought funny irony, like perfect.
Right.
He says, the terrible thing. He's in the hallway with his brother, and he says, "You should kill her." About his wife. He goes, "Hey, don't talk. That's still my wife."
Right.
There's a certain line you do not cross. What line didn't he cross?
Right. There's so many of those lines, like all that sort of absurd. He's like, he hit her with a baseball. I mean, it's like you're laughing.
Ridiculous.
It's totally crazy.
But that's how I kind of actually, not that my parents would, it's hard to say because people don't understand unless, don't forget I'm 73. We're talking about something half a century ago.
Yes.
I mean, it's something I know that I grew up with. So,
Marty, I want to tell you, I really appreciate it. I wish you a great holiday. Enjoy the new year.
You too.
And I appreciate you taking the time. It really means a lot to me. And
okay, Mike. So let me know what you do. Okay, let me know how things go.
Absolutely, absolutely,
right.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Okay. I don't even know what to say. The fact that I was able to get Martin Scorsese to be on the I Am Rapaport podcast is a monumental mountaintop moment. I need to catch my breath. That was dope. That was dope. And it's the I Am Rapaport podcast. All right, so the reality of Raging Bull is that it's about a real boxer, and the real boxer is obviously Jake LaMotta. And pretty much all the boxing stuff was very spot on in the film. What happened in the ring, the most famous sort of line and memory, I think, from Raging Bulls when Ray Leonard, Sugar Ray Robinson, was fighting Jake LaMotta, and he sort of absorbs all the punishment, and then he says, "You never got me down, Ray. You never got me down," after he takes a ginormous beating in Raging Bull. So I'm calling my friend, probably the number one boxing analyst in the world, Max Kellerman, to break down the real Jake LaMotta versus the performance by De Niro, Jake LaMotta, and also, add his thoughts on the film because he's a humongous fan as well. All right, so we're going to get my man right now.
Hello.
Max, it's Michael Rapaport.
Hey, Michael, what's going on?
How you doing, my man?
Good.
All right, so I told you, Max, I'm doing an all Raging Bull episode of the I Am Rapaport podcast. The first thing I wanted to ask you about was the real Jake LaMotta as a fighter versus how he was depicted in the film. Was it depicted properly? But just first speak on who is Jake LaMotta in boxing lore and boxing history. What did he mean to boxing, and what kind of boxer, and what is he best known for? So break down Jake LaMotta.
The number one attribute he had was his chin. He could take punishment like nobody else. I mean, there are a couple of fighters on that list, Marvin Hagler, that I've seen in my lifetime, Daniel Zaragoza, and there were fighters before LaMotta. But if push comes to shove, you say, who's the guy who could take the best punch ever? I would say Jake LaMotta. Wow. He was never legitimately off his feet. And so he's known for that. I think also, as was depicted in the movie, the fact that he was this highly avoided middleweight contender trying to do it on his own, but the fact was the mob had a stranglehold on boxing at the time, and so he had to throw a fight to get a title shot.
How real is that whole thing about fights being fixed, the mob's, hold on boxing and that whole element? Obviously, I mean, it wasn't just LaMotta and just the Raging Bull of it all, but like, speak on that. I mean, that was a real thing. Like, that was a real problem for fighters, and you had to take dives in order to get this, and, sort of compromise yourself in order to really get a shot at the title. Was that real stuff?
Yeah, there was something called the IBC. All these sanctioning bodies today. The IBC was the International Boxing Club, I think was the acronym, and it was basically a syndicate, more or less. Or at least it had all these different venues throughout the country, all the biggest venues in the biggest fight towns in New York, all the big venues in Chicago, big venues like that. And if you wanted a big fight at a big venue against a top fighter, you had to do business with them, and that went on for years. In fact, Cus D'Amato is usually credited as the guy who ultimately broke the stranglehold of the IBC, on the biggest titles and biggest fighters in boxing.
And the LaMotta Ray Robinson, the Sugar Ray Robinson Jake LaMotta fights, were they as vicious and as brutal as they were depicted in the film? And do you know of LaMotta, the real LaMotta, actually ever saying to him like one of the most famous lines in the movie, and it's it's been sort of used outside the movie is "You never got me down, Ray." Like, so talk to me about the real fights and how they depicted in just in terms of boxing history, because they fought 3 times. They talk about them as
they fought 6 times.
6 times.
They fought 6 times. The only one I've seen is called the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. That's the last one, the one you're referring to. You never knocked me down, Ray. When LaMotta at that point had the middleweight championship that he'd won from Marcel Cerdan, the great French fighter, and Robinson moved up from welterweight to fight LaMotta for it. That was their last fight. They'd fought 5 times before that already.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, LaMotta gave Sugar Ray Robinson was 40-0 when he fought Jake LaMotta. And LaMotta gave him his first loss in New York. It was Sugar Ray's New York debut, and later he became very associated with New York City and had businesses in Harlem and fought a lot in New York. But Robinson was from Detroit, as Joe Louis was, and he comes to New York. He can't get anyone to fight him, and neither can LaMotta, so they fought each other. LaMotta outweighed him by about 15 pounds. Ray was a welterweight. LaMotta was a middleweight, and LaMotta knocks him down. Early enough, I think in the first round. And Robinson comes back to beat him, and they fight again a couple months later, and this time LaMotta wins, knocks him down again, and they fight again like 3 or 4 weeks later, and this time Robinson wins. I don't remember if Robinson got dropped in that one, and like that. And LaMotta eventually said, I fought Sugar Ray Robinson. I fought Sugar Ray so much I got diabetes, something like that was his line. But he was, Robinson didn't lose another fight until he had 130 wins. LaMotta's the only guy to beat him while he was in his prime. When you hear like Floyd Mayweather, he's 49-0, this one has this many wins with no losses. Let me know when you got 130 wins, how many losses you got. LaMotta lost to that guy a lot, the greatest fighter who ever lived, Robinson. But in spite of the fact that LaMotta was able to drop Sugar Ray a lot, he was not a big puncher. He wasn't a knockout artist. In terms of the way they depicted him in the movie, he was a brawler. He was an inside fighter. He was very slick on his way inside, hard to hit because he had short arms and he was short, and small hands, as he said in the movie. Mm-hmm. But was not a knockout fighter. Didn't usually knock his guy out. Usually worked him over and won on points. As a brutal knockout artist, that's not what he was.
And that's really good. And is that famous line? You never got me down. I mean, he never got him down, but we don't know if that was said or actually not said, or if that was just something.
I couldn't tell you offhand if he actually said it. A lot of the fights in that era that LaMotta fought don't exist anymore.
Okay.
Because during the Second World War, the celluloid that they made film for was thought to be very necessary for the war effort, and so they preserved Joe Louis's fights because he was heavyweight champ. And I've seen some home movies of Robinson and different fighters from that era, but during the Second World War, during those years, mid-40s, you don't really have a lot of existing footage. So the LaMotta that you see is from after that, and the Robinson LaMotta fight that I've seen many times is and different rounds from it is the St. Valentine's Day Massacre for the middleweight title.
All right, that's good. And what do you know about like LaMotta's upbringing? He's from the Bronx. He's the Bronx Bull, the Raging Bull. So like, what can you break down about like how he came up and what his background was?
He came up running the streets in the Bronx. He and Rocky Graziano was a very colorful fighter from that same time. He was a bigger puncher than LaMotta, but not as great a fighter, and he had a crazy 3-fight series with Tony Zale, considered maybe the best action series ever in the history of boxing. And somebody up there likes me, Paul Newman. That's the Rocky Graziano story.
Right.
Another great boxing movie. And Graziano came up running the streets with LaMotta. Used to say, because Graziano and LaMotta did stand-up acts basically at nightclubs later on in life. And one of Graziano's famous lines was, "We never stole anything unless it began with an A car, a truck, a TV, like this." And it's funny that these two guys would come up together and eventually both be the middleweight champion of the world at different times.
That is crazy. All right, this is exactly what I mean. You're around fighters more than anybody who's not an actual fighter. what from all the years and all the research and obviously before you became Max Kellerman, and an analyst, you were a fan. What is it about fighters in general? What is it about their lifestyle, what it takes, the commitment that they continue? I mean, I'm shocked that Creed was as good and as successful as it turned out. Because I'm the most cynical Rocky fan out there. But what is it about boxers that you think make for great movies?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's the same thing that makes boxing more compelling than other sports. I do this thought experiment, through the years. I've done it 100 times, I'm sure. If you come where I can prove to anyone boxing is their favorite sport in, 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. You come to a street corner and two guys are playing a pickup game of basketball in one corner. On another corner, it's a stickball game. On the third corner, they're throwing the football around, and on the fourth corner, there's a fist fight. Where's the crowd? The crowd's around the fist fight. So then the question is, because it's just intrinsically more compelling. Why is it more compelling? Because everything else is metaphor, and boxing is literal. So if Agassi can't return Sampras's serve, it's because Sampras has metaphorically imposed his will on Agassi, the ball being the surrogate for his will. Mm-hmm. If Mike Tyson can't get up from a Lennox Lewis right hand, it's literal. It's not a metaphor. His brain is telling his legs, get up. His legs can't do it. And that's because Lennox has literally separated him from his own will, right? So the literal imposition of one will on another is simply more compelling than a metaphor for the same thing. And in the movies, it works in reverse. If you're using stories as a metaphor for people's struggle, right? I mean, it's conflict and resolution, and that's what drama is. What is a better metaphor for it than boxing, where they are literally fighting. They're fighting for something. And then, of course, when you get into the character study of it all, these guys are interesting guys. You got to be a little crazy to get in there and fight. And a little crazy is usually pretty fun to watch.
All right, Max Kellerman, this is exactly what I thought you would bring to this. I appreciate you doing it. I appreciate your insight. You're the best in the business, and I just appreciate you doing this for me and for Raging Bull's 35th anniversary. Can you believe that movie is 35 years old?
And it ages so well. It's still amazing to watch. You can watch Mean Streets and you can see him working some of that stuff out. And later on, Goodfellas was maybe more, I don't know if you want to say advanced, but it was a more mature work later in his life. But then it feels like it was a little derivative of Raging Bull. Raging Bull was to me Scorsese's absolute best, and I think, didn't it win Best Picture of the '80s at the time? By the end of the decade.
At the end of the decade, it won the best film of the '80s. But when it came out, I mean, De Niro, obviously you couldn't deny his performance, but Ordinary People beat Raging Bull for Best Film 1980, if you could believe that.
I mean, listen, Dances with Wolves beat Goodfellas.
Yep.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? You win, you win. If you lose, you still win.
You still win. You can't lose.
Yo, Max, thanks for doing this.
Michael, my pleasure. Anytime, brother.
This is Juliette Lewis. Juliette?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. So, Raging Bull.
Raging Bull.
You're sort of a Raging Bullette.
Raging Bull. Well, I don't know how to take that, but there's so many parts to Raging Bull that are iconic. It feels like there were 7 movies in one movie. Mm-hmm. And then like from what you were just talking about, the violence that Scorsese showed with Pesci, that kind of violence that's so absurd but so real and made people laugh but made you so uncomfortable. God, it's so weird. It was such a combination of things.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I don't know when the last time you saw the flick was, Jules, but like I would call you a tough broad, but like that movie the way it resonates with men, I have to assume it resonates differently with women. I mean, but just talk to me about, like, as an actor, like the performances and the method acting, and even Kathy Moriarty. I mean, she was so beautiful. I mean, stunning in that movie. Like probably one of the most beautiful movie characters I could think of. When you think of the way she looked in that film, the way she was dressed, her hair, the blonde hair, she was, I can't speak on how it resonates male and female, but as an actor person, who is drawn to characters and truth and complexity, that's what it's about. But regular folks dig that. Regular folks. Who am I? What am I, from the 50s? Regular folks. No, but there's just those scenes. I think it's a guy that's unstoppable. He's like unpunishable. And for me, the scene, of course, that stands out is, "You didn't knock me down, Ray. You didn't knock me down." Like, right.
He's a bloody fucking mess. He's like a zombie. But I don't know, it speaks to the spirit of just keep getting up.
Right.
And there's a brutality in it, but there's so much heart. And he's such a bizarre character. I don't know that I would be friends with the guy. So I don't know why it was so, it resonated. What do you think? Why did it resonate with people when it's such a niche kind of world? Aren't they from the Bronx or Brooklyn?
Yeah, no, they're from the Bronx, and I think that "You Never Got Me Down, Ray," and that thing. Yeah. I think that's something anyone can relate to in any world. Like, I think it's sort of like, a tenacity, and it's like in life, it's like we all get the shit kicked out of us, and he never went down, but like there's sort of like it's a metaphor for life, and although it's so extreme with what he does in the movie, but I think like that line and that sort of, what when he's saying that after taking such a beating, because you get your ass kicked in life, you get your ass kicked in relationships. I kick my own ass personally every time I lay down to sleep, and I think, but so I think that's it's crazy that there is that sort of thing, because when you watch the movie, it's not an easy film to watch. It's not like you could sit down and be like, "Hey, let's watch Raging Bull," and we're gonna. It's not that kind of movie, Yet it's a complex, hard film. For me, the harder the film, I think the better. Like, if I, go over my top 5 movies and shit, none of them are, I try to find a comedy in them, but there's none of them. I like grit.
Yeah, what mine are? They're like Midnight Express, Francis, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, they're brutal, and they're films that stay with you for days, for weeks. But Raging Bull, let's talk about like the urban legends. We've heard other acting urban legends, I guess, but nothing more than the De Niro transformation. I mean, I heard they shut down production for 5 months so he could gain the weight, or is that what happened?
No, that's true.
How does someone do that?
The fact that they did that. Like, just on a budget, and technically, like, okay, you're gonna get in shape, you're gonna get in ridiculous shape, and you're gonna be a boxer, and then the business today, you wouldn't be able to do that, and then we're gonna shut down for 5 or 6 months, and you're gonna eat like a slob, and then we're gonna come back and continue shooting. I just don't think that could be done now. But as far as a benchmark in acting. That's the benchmark in acting. And one of the things that's so De Niro and so cool is that he never talks about it. Like, if you see interviews... No, that's what I was saying. You'd want him to write a book. Just write a book about the development of that character, but he doesn't talk about it. Which I think is cool, because it's like he was just I think it just shows that he was just doing it because it was a necessary thing. Like, it's like a job requirement. In order to do this job, to play this part the best way, this is what we need to do. I think a lot of times now, when what they did, the weight gain, the weight loss, the smoking cigarettes, it all becomes like, sort of like the selling points of this is why you should go see the movie and this is why you should get nominated, where he did it at the highest level. And he was, as far as I know, he was the first person to do it in such an extreme way. Obviously, other actors have done, before him have done, they've went out of their way, and he's not the only one who's went out of their way. But this, you could see it. He physically transformed himself.
I don't think anybody had done it to that degree. And man, that does speak to De Niro's character, his integrity, that he doesn't tell you about his process at all. Like, he doesn't showboat it. He just lives it and delivers it. Because, like, even when we did Cape Fear, he did crazy shit behind the scenes. Like, I only know it because Scorsese told me one time we were in my trailer, and I was like, oh, where'd you just come from? And he goes, I just came from Bob's trailer. He had a gospel singer in there playing piano, and they were speaking in tongues. It's like, I don't know, that shit's going on in his trailer to prep for the psycho killer he's playing who speaks in tongues. But I just love his wild shit that he's doing behind the scenes.
And then when you were working with him, and did he bring any of the stuff he was doing on his own to the set? Like, this whole thing of method acting and, Daniel Day-Lewis, who's fucking ridiculously good, but apparently he stays in character. Like, when you were working with him on Cape Fear, did he stay in, like, when in between action and cut, is he really still a Max Cady, or is he Bob De Niro?
That was the other thing I learned, because even as a young actor, I heard all those urban legends, and you hear the term method. But what he did with me, no, he just had, didn't talk a lot, like when we did the auditorium scene, but he'd always say hello and goodbye, and he'd give me a hug. I think he was being, like, really kind, because our relationship, not because he is a kind person, but I think our relationship in the film was tinged with where he has to make me feel safe, the character. So I just remember him, like, just being really, really sweet, but not talking a lot, and observing his energy, like what he's doing. But yeah, no, he wasn't dark off when we said cut. That's the thing. He was just owning all that. I don't know, wrapping up all that power. And then once the camera was on, it's like so much presence all there. Like, that guy was that guy. That wasn't De Niro. That was that guy,
Have you ever worked with another actor? I mean, I know you were so young when you did Cape Fear, but have you ever worked with, you've worked with so many goddamn actors. I mean, but like, it's hard to compare, but I mean, I don't want to ask you that, because then it's like, obviously you worked with fucking Meryl Streep and Woody Harrelson and Robert Downey. I mean, there's so many great people. But all right, let me ask you about this, because what about, out of all, now that it's like you've been working for like 20 something years, and you did Cape Fear so young, and what is it that you remember about Scorsese that sort of, besides the brilliance that's in his head, which, we can't articulate, what is it like working with him, and what makes him special, and what do you think sticks out with him as a director when you're being directed by him?
Yeah. The number one thing is his love of cinema, and his love of the visual element, and his love of everything, and passion. Like, he's electric to be around. And that was the one thing compared to all other directors, is we'd step on set at like 7 a.m, and you've seen interviews with Scorsese where he talks a mile a minute, and he's just electric about all things cinema. He just radiates passion and love and energy about it. So to be directed by someone like that, and his energy is unwavering from 7 a.m. till 9 at night. It's the same. And when he would shoot, like, because in Cape Fear there's this whole montage, he was shooting close-ups of, like, locking the doors, shutting the blinds. It was like this super intense but they're really, not exciting shots to be doing, but he made them exciting, and he made everything full of like danger, because that's what the film was supposed to be. But yeah, anyway, his sense of adventure and his love of the visual and making everything exciting to look at, and also he loves actors. Jessica Lange worked different than De Niro. I worked totally different than everybody. I wasn't trained. I was all instinct. So he knew how to work with and get the best out of every actor. That's not something all directors know how to do.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's good shit, Juliette. This is the Iron Rapaport podcast, all Raging Bull episode. I got my man Nick Turturro here, whose brother, John Turturro, is basically a glorified extra in the film. The film was shot in 79, came out in 80. Mm-hmm. So he was just an actor. He was a New York actor.
He was a New York actor who I think it was before, if I remember correctly,
this is 79.
Before Yale, before he went to Yale. So he had been working at the Westbeth Theater in the Bank Street. Him and Michael Bottalucco were doing plays down there. Bottalucco was doing a play, I forget the name of it, and he played a referee. And I think John was his understudy. So him and Mike they did their own plays. They were doing a play down there, and apparently De Niro and Pacino were gonna come one night. And my brother told me, because I had just seen New York. And I said, really? They're both coming? He goes, as far as I know, they're both coming. I go, can I come? And he goes, yeah, but be cool. Be fucking cool. Don't fool around. All right, I said, all right, I'll be cool. He said, because I may not be on tonight, but Bottalucco's going on. But I want to be sitting near him too. I said, okay. He goes, there's 4 seats roped off. I said, I'm going to sit next to the last seat roped off. And I went with this blue Hawaiian shirt like he wore, Jimmy Doyle, New York. I was just a kid, I'm wearing a blue Hawaiian shirt. It looked like that. And Pacino doesn't come. But De Niro comes with Sis Corman. Sis Corman was a big casting director back then. He comes, man, my heart was pounding. I'm a kid. I mean, De Niro in his heyday with the thing on his
the mole
cheek, the mole. Oh, shit, I see him. But my brother said, be cool.
When you saw him, were you like, holy shit?
Oh, yeah. Fucking, movie stars have big heads, too. Like me and my brother talked about that.
Physically big heads.
Yeah, they have a lot of them have big heads.
Yeah, it's true.
Their heads are big. And he sat down, but there was 4 seats, and I think he sat like in one seat. There was one empty seat. He sat, then she sat, and he must have realized if 2 other people come, they're going to be on each side of the 4 seats roped off. So like he sat down, and then he got up, and he sat right next to me. I was like, oh, shit, man. Here's my chance, but I can't fuck up. I have to be cool, because John told me, be cool. So I'm sitting there, man, and I said, excuse me. I said, do you have the time? That's the exact question. Exact question. He says, about 8:15. I said, thank you. I turned around. He must have said, what the fuck that kid asked me for the time for? I'm wondering why that kid asked me the time. Probably freaked him out. He did a couple of double takes too. He's looking at the shirt. You're looking at the shirt and shit like that. And I don't know if he was wondering like, what's the fucking blue? He wore a shirt that looked like that. Kid asked me for the time. So second half, John told me, move over. I'm sitting next to him. I said, okay. So I guess he was talking to John a little bit. And I don't know why. John maybe had a Guinea t-shirt. Maybe he liked John's look. They were looking at the time for people, for Raging Bull. And I think when Bottalucco came out, he laughed. He broke out in laughter. I saw him light up. And then even John said, he goes, I think he was even checking you out. He asked me, who was that kid? He said, that's my brother. He said, no problem. He said, but you did good. So then John told me, that they were going to get an audition. He liked Bottalucco, and he liked the way John looked.
Audition for Raging Bull.
He told Bottalucco, he said, you and your friend with the Guinea t-shirt. This is coming from Bottalucco. He told me the story.
Michael Bottalucco, the actor. You know him from tons of films.
He was a prop man.
The Practice.
And then he became an actor. Yeah, he was an actor with John in college. He was really an actor that started doing props, but he was, he worked with Woody. He was Woody's prop man. Then Woody
He's
put
in
him
Broadway,
in some.
Danny Rose.
Yeah, he's great. He's ripping up money. It's a wild man, Badalucco. He's a wild man.
But he's a trained actor.
Trained actor. He's a real actor. It's just that he was doing, he was doing another job for a little while. But Michael was a smart guy, a little crazy too.
Of course.
They went out and got the book. They used to research things. They bought the book. I guess
Raging Bull.
Raging Bull.
A lot of people don't know that it was based on a book that Jake LaMotta wrote.
Yeah.
Not a great book, a good book.
I heard it wasn't even that great. I never read it, to be honest. I read Wise Guys, but I never read that book. There was no Joey character. There was a best friend.
Right.
The best friend was Pete Savage.
Right.
Savage, who has a cameo at the end. Peter Savage was with Jake's best friend because I met him at a college class. I was taking a film course. I met Pete Savage. So that Joey character was the best friend. But I don't know
Joey,
if
the Joe Pesci kid. So there was no brother who was like that brother thing was created by De Niro and Scorsese.
And Scorsese and De Niro and was it who wrote the script? He used to write Scorsese. I think he did Mean Streets.
Yes.
Martin Mardick or something.
Yes. Martin Mardick.
Anyway, they created that.
Okay.
So John and Badalucco got the book, and they dressed up as 50s guys. They were young, but. And the older guy, like Frank Vincent, got cast. Those guys were a little older than John and Badalucco. So obviously, when they went in to read for Salvi, they probably said, "Well, you could, maybe you're too young." They told De Niro and Scorsese told Badalucco. John and Badalucco went in with suits, and they were dressed in 50s gear.
Because everybody wanted to be a part of this movie.
Yeah,
Raging Bull at the time. Young actors.
Young actors, and they said, "We have a scene. We have material." And they were like, well, "What scene? There's no scene," Scorsese said. He goes, No, we got the book. They got a book. They got the book. They did like a scene from the book.
Right.
They wrote their own scene.
Right.
They had a prop bag. They had a bag with guns in there, Badalucco said. They said they were going to maybe, if they had to desperately pull out these guns. But they never pulled them out. They had prop guns in the bag. Badalucco tells it very dramatically. He's like, "Yeah, we had guns, Nick. We had guns in the bag." But they never revealed the guns. But Scorsese was going to not let them. He liked them. He liked their look because you're too young or something. And then he goes, "No, we have a scene. We want to read our scene for you." They were like, "What scene? There's no scene." And he goes, "Yeah, we got a scene from the book. We lifted it from the book." So De Niro, being an actor, said, let them read. Let them do the. He got a kick out of them.
Uh-huh.
So they enjoyed them. So they gave Badalucco this part where he actually had a few lines. He was at the soda fountain where he goes, "Hey, Mike, give me a Coke."
And he brings him over a Coke.
He brings him a Coke. And then they used John and Badalucco in the scene where he sees Vicky
at the Copacabana
dance. They're at the table at the dance.
And if you look at the movie, you'll see John Turturro, young John Turturro,
shakes De Niro's hand. He's sitting right next to De Niro. Badalucco's got like a toothpick in his mouth. And then Pesci's there. And then De Niro's childhood friend, who's like a wild man, who was at the table. He throws somebody out. So that was... And he didn't even get a credit, John. But Badalucco got a SAG card from Raging Bull.
And you went to the set.
I went down as a kid with John, and then we watched him film the scene where he shakes our hand. We were across the street. I remember he came out of his trailer.
The first time he meets Vicky, he shakes her hand at the pool.
He goes, "You want to meet my brother?" He goes, "He's going to be the next champ, right? Jake, come here." And then, he comes out and he goes by the gate and he goes, "How you doing? Where you from? Around here? You like that car?" He goes, "You want to go for a ride? You want to go for a ride?" And so we were like fucking 10 feet away. We're watching the whole day. I'm like, "Man, look how good he looks." When him and Scorsese, all you could see was them talking in his ear, like whispering in his ear. There wasn't a lot of people on the street. There was a few people. It's a different time.
Right.
It was a different time. And I just remember I was blown away. We stood there for hours. Far enough that we didn't bother them, because I didn't want to get John in trouble or anything. But we were watching that whole scene. It's a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
Great scene when he shakes her hand,
And what do you remember about? I remember you said the way he moved. I remember you told me just the way he looked.
Yeah, the
physically.
the way he looked physically, the way he walked down the street. I have a problem with a lot of these guys that fight fighters, like even the kid in Creed. Nothing against them, and Jake. They're all pumped. They're all steroid out. I mean, they look too muscular. Like he actually looked, whether he could fight or not. You bought him as a fighter. He had a fighter's body, like a flat body, but his bounce, his step, you could see man, he's a fucking movie star and he's a great actor. And look at him. He was just like poetry. I just had that image of him coming out. And he looked beautiful. He looked like a fighter.
Yeah.
He looked like a fucking prize fighter. Like,
yeah.
You were like, wow. You know, I've met real fighters. I was friends with Boom Boom Mancini, and I used to did a play with him. I used to take his shirt off. I used to feel his body. I used to go, ooh, what a body, Ray. I love fighters' bodies.
No, I know what you mean.
I'm not homosexual, but their bodies are beautiful. And I'm like, I could feel them up, man. I could feel their bodies. I love their bodies. They're beautiful bodies.
I agree. I know exactly what you're saying.
Beautiful bodies.
So the movie. So why do we love this movie so much? Essentially, it's about a guy who is abusive, self-destructive, and just a fucking terror. The character in this movie, obviously, you know, the movie Raging Bull and the character that they created out of Jake LaMotta is, you know, it's not literal to his life. I mean, obviously, Jake, the real Jake, has his thing, but we're talking about the movie. But this movie character...
The brilliance of the movie, Mike, is the execution. The story is not that incredible. He's not even the guy that you should care or like, but for some reason, I think we see a lot of things of ourselves in Jake. You know, I know we're insecure. I know deep down we're jealous. I know you don't want nobody fucking your girl or your wife. You know, so there are things there that deep down, even though people say, oh, he's an animal, he's a fucking brute, but deep down, there's a lot of things that the relationship of that movie, and you almost feel like it's very personal, that movie. You almost feel like you're looking in a window, you know, but him and Pesci, the acting was off the wall because it was very much like this, like me and my brother. When we have a conversation, people go, wow, I love watching you and your brother talk because we're brothers. We're brothers. And you don't see that in a movie. You know, like when he does the movies, like, you know, what's the matter with you? My hand, wrap it around your hand. He goes, you know, not too many more. You know, he's like, you know, just the conversation that they have, the give and go and the brutality and the, you know, he's like, I was watching that scene the other night, you know, did you or did you not? You know, he's not going to answer that. It's a sick question. I ain't sick enough to answer. I ain't going to answer that. You give me all these answers, but you don't give me the right one. He was really fucking nuts. It was like an acting exercise.
De Niro was
right.
That character.
Just tell me. Just tell me, he goes. Did you or did you not? Because I heard some things. What things? I heard some things. When he said what he says it, I heard some things. I heard some things. Oh, you know, fucking start that worrying shit. Don't start it. Christ's sakes. He's like, sorry, fuck Vicky. You know, he's like, Jack, don't start your shit. And then when he says, you included you with them. You could have said anybody, but you said you and them. He goes, you don't know how nuts you are. You know, the insanity of the things that you think that you could drive yourself fucking crazy. There's
a man, and that's, the thing I think that we relate to.
And I think that's what we relate to. That we relate to that.
Many things, but I know what you're saying, and it's not something you're proud of.
No, you're not proud of it.
I'm not proud of it.
It's a weakness.
It is a weakness.
It's an insecurity.
But he shows it so openly that as men, this is why... Because I was trying to think of this answer. Why am I doing this? I'm doing a screening of Raging Bull. I'm doing, you know, like, okay, yeah, it was a great performance, but like, what is it about you love about the character? And I think it's not that we love, like we celebrate him like he's a rogue, but we relate to it, the insecurities. We relate to his flaws. Yeah. And I think as men, and women can say the same thing, and obviously, I think it's a very masculine sort of thing it tapped into.
It is.
With the jealousy and the insecurity and the self-destructiveness. Yeah. And I think, you know, you as somebody, like, I think, you know, it's something that it's a common thing, and that a lot of people probably wouldn't even admit that they have, but I know you and me and you, we could say that we had that, and also the humor of it. Yeah. Because because
it is, some of it is funny, and some of it is sad, but the jealousy and, you know, the insecurity of that, it hits home when you're a man. Right. You know, like, and a lot of things about Raging Bull, that the truth, I think it's so true that it comes back to Jake. There's a lot of truth. You know, there's a lot of humor in it, you know.
And talk about the humor.
Yeah, the humor.
I mean, because also, for me, the first time I saw that movie, I didn't think it was funny, but as you keep, because you're sort of knocked on your heels. I'm trying to, like, I mean, I was a fucking kid. I was 10.
How old were you?
I was 10. Yeah. So the first time you're watching it, it's so tense. It's beyond the tension that he created, because they sort of they got in the same ballpark. De Niro, Scorsese during Goodfellas and the famous Am I a Clown? It kind of...
Yeah, but more subtle.
More subtle.
It was more subtlety. And then you have to watch that movie over the years. Where there's a lot of moments that are funny that you didn't know were funny.
Right.
You know, even like when he's sitting there in the kitchen with the girl and he goes, He goes, when
they talk about Gennaro.
Yeah, no. And then it was just when his first date, when he's sitting there with her, and he goes, we're so far away. You're like on the other side of the room.
Right.
He keeps trying to get her closer. He goes, come over here. Come a little closer. Then he takes her in the bedroom, and he goes, you like that picture? You like that picture? He goes, yeah. Me and my brother fooling around. He goes, and how beautiful you are. Did anybody ever tell you how beautiful you are? Yeah, they tell you all the time. She has that nice neck. He kisses the neck. It's funny. It's just something funny about it. He sits on the bed and he puts his hand.
It's awkward too.
Yeah. Well, he's very awkward with women anyway.
But in the character, he does that perfectly.
But it is awkward because you don't see them kiss.
No.
You don't see them make out.
There's no sex in the movie.
No sex. No nothing.
No.
The only thing you see,
it's sexual
which is
movie,
really
though.
sexy, which is will make you want to almost play with yourself, is when she kisses his fucking stomach.
Right.
That is a turn on.
Yeah. And you see nothing.
Oh, yeah, but you see his face.
Yes, his reaction.
When she's going down to that area.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, my God.
Yeah. And the way she's doing it. And she's so, Kathy Moriarty.
She was great in it.
One of the most beautiful.
She was beautiful.
And as far as on-screen characters, physically knockout.
Yeah, she was gorgeous. They found her, Pesci found her, I think. She was a big bombshell.
Knockout.
I saw her too by the pool. I was like, who is that girl? The bombshell. And then when I saw Pesci too, I was like, wow, who's this guy? He's fucking great. Because he, as good as he was in all these other movies, when you watch him in that movie, he's fantastic. He's fantastic in that movie. He's so, he's so great. Because he wasn't even doing the Joe Pesci stuff. He's flashy, he's great in Goodfellas. Don't kid you, he's terrific. But he's so wonderful.
Yeah.
In the scenes with he's just great. He's so funny in his way, the way he explains things to his brother.
If you win, you win.
Right. If you win, you win.
If you lose,
you still win.
Just get down to 155 pounds, you fat fuck. You stop eating.
Right. He's just great the way he talks to him. It's just his way about it. He was really just wonderful. I saw it too. I was like, wow, this guy is good. He said, I remember my brother, yeah, he's great. He's great, man. They broke his balls, I heard about. They tracked him down. De Niro found him in some movie, and they tortured him, I heard, for a year.
Pesci.
Yeah, they said, you're gonna get the part. You're gonna get the part. Then in the end, they were gonna almost give it to somebody else, and he went wild. I heard he fucking went wild. He was he was ready to fucking kill somebody, because it was he had a hard time breaking into show business. Right. He never got a break, and then De Niro tracked him down. Had a good eye. De Niro must have had a great eye.
They knew.
Saw him in this movie, with Joe Cortese, another crazy guy. And Joe Cortese was trying to get in. All these guys were probably trying to become that part. I think everybody wanted that part. And I was like, who is this guy, Joe Pesci? Where did he come from? He's fucking great. In the end, when he's trying to talk to him, come here. He was great when he gives him huh? He goes, come on, forgive and forget. It's sad, and he's kissing him, almost like me. He loved his brother, him, but then he fucked him. He really hurt him.
Yeah,
I mean, you beat your brother up like that, throw him through a glass window.
Right?
Fuck is wrong with you? Fuck is wrong with you?
Right?
That's your brother. You put him through the window. It's because what jealousy can do.
Yeah.
Understand this. I'm not going to say it. Now, then, see this?
You can say
it. No, I'm not saying it. Now, look at that sign.
You can say it.
Now, the rage of this.
He's making a
has driven people to do murder.
Oh, no, it's crazy.
Murder, O.J. Simpson. I mean,
murder. We're not condoning this. We're saying it can make you
terrible.
Nuts.
It's terrible.
Jealousy?
Yes.
Can make O.J. Simpson.
Because when we get...
You did it, O.J.
Yes, when you get... man...
And it's that thing of you think it's yours. And you think
it's not yours.
It's not yours.
It's not yours.
It's just a little piece of snapper.
It's a little snapper that's not yours. You think it's yours. You think you own it. You don't own it. You don't own anything. You came in alone. You're fucking going out alone. It's not coming in the box with you.
Right.
You like to think it's yours.
Right.
When you're sucking on it or whatever, this is mine. This is mine for good.
All right, this is John Turturro.
Hello?
John, it's Michael.
Hey, Michael, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
So what are you doing, a podcast for?
So I'm doing a podcast in celebration of the 35th anniversary of Raging Bull. And of course, you know, I know you were in the film, and I know that it was like the first thing you would ever, the first film you had ever gotten a part in. And I just wanted to just ask you about like how you wound up in the film and what you remember about, you know, the experience being on the set, and like, you know, what compelled you to go from what I know, so far out of your way, you know, to like audition and, you know, keep auditioning for De Niro and Scorsese, and just what you remember. It was 35 years ago, so it's a long time ago. But I mean, at the time you were, you know, a young New York actor, and, you know, obviously it must have been an exciting set to be on. So I just wanted to, you know, hear what you remember, what your thoughts were, and how the experience was.
Well, I was in college in SUNY New Paltz, and I would, in the summers, and this was, I don't know what summer it was, because it was a couple years before they made the movie. Maybe it was 1977, 78, 78. Yeah. And Michael Bartolucco, who became my friend, he was older than me. He introduced me to all the people at the Westbeck Theater Center, and we were doing a play there, Tooth of Crime. And he had to leave, so I replaced him. And then we heard that De Niro was going to come. You know, I had never met De Niro, but he was like a big, you know, because of Mean Streets and Taxi Driver, was going to come. But then he wanted to come back and replace me, which he did do. And then I was at the, like, kind of at the, I was a ticket taker. And I remember that everyone said, well, you should come when De Niro comes. And I was really, I remember I had like a tight T-shirt on, and I was like 20, I guess. Wow. Yeah. And he was 21, 20, and then he came, and I made him pay, I remember. So,
that's funny.
And I sat next to him, and then we saw the show, and he was laughing with Mike, and then I guess he told Sis Corman, who was the casting agent, that he liked Michael in the play, and he noticed this other guy who was picking the tickets, and I was sitting next to him, and he thought, I'd like to bring these two guys in. And so we got this phone call, and Michael got it, and then I guess I got it. He got my number. I don't know how they got my number. We were supposed to meet them, which is Corman. They had no script or anything. I had never gone on a professional audition in my life. I had auditioned for college plays.
Right.
And we went and we took pictures, Michael and I. We used to buy our clothes in all these thrift shops in New York. So we had lots of 40s and 50s clothes. And we took like pictures of us in 40s clothes. And Michael and I decided, we were like, you know, I said, you know, because my dad was an amateur boxer, and I used to buy fight films from Jim Jacobs, from Ring Magazine, who wound up being Mike Tyson's manager. So I had all these books on fighters, and when I was a kid, because my father loved boxing, and I had 8mm Super 8 films of all these different fighters, Sugar Ray, Graziano, Marciano, Joe Louis, and I read Raging Bull when I was like 10 years old. Right. I read the book. I mean, it was an adult book, but I read it. I used to read all these biographies. And I said, listen, I have this book. I said, so why don't we... So we decided to adapt the scene and try to convince them to let us, you know, show them the scene. So we rehearsed the scene. We had like a month in advance. I remember like we did it like a play. We adapted it. We did it on a table. We did it boxing, we did it running, we did it swimming, we did it all kinds of ways. I worked with a teacher on it. It was like this whole thing. But then the night before we were supposed to go in, you know, we were like, suppose they don't let us do it. You know, because they don't have a script or anything. And I had never gone on an audition. So Mike was like, well, if they'll let us do it, then he was all fired up. He said, we'll hold them hostage. We'll do all kinds of crazy. And I was like, come on, Mike, you can't really do that. And, but he was like serious. He was saying, like, no, we'll scare them. I was like, oh, no, my career will be over before I forget. So then we went to the meeting. And, we were supposed to just say hello. Like, go in like a quick Woody Allen type of, and I guess Mike talked to them and he said, we have this little scene. And then they were laughing or whatever. And then they brought me in. And I think they brought me in alone. And Mike went out. And I said, yeah, blah, blah, blah. We talked a little bit. And they said, I have this scene. And so I think Mike was still in there when I came in. That's what he was. And Marty was like nervous. He was like, well, we don't have a script. We don't have anything. And I was like, oh, come on, let's let them do it. They adapted it from the book. So we had to move a table, I remember. It was a glass table. And all four of us had to pick the table up. And there was no bass. And Scorsese was going, props, and like we had to move the table over, and then we had to push the bass over.
That's
and we
funny.
did this like on the waterfront scene, like between Jake and his friend, like Pete Savage. Like, and I guess, we ignored it. We did it like for a month straight, so we, and I think we're really kind of like enamored that we were these two stupid kids, really. And they were looking at young people because he was supposed to be really young in the beginning and then get older. But really, honestly, we were too young because he was 15 years older than us. So, but they were really kind of enamored that we had the chutzpah to do it. And then they kept calling us back for a year. And they would show us the scenes. And there were these scenes that were in the movie, but of course they elaborated once they did it. As the brother, as Salvi, the one that Frank Vincent played.
Right.
And I never went on, and I used to go to Marty's apartment, and I used to audition there. I had never been on a, ever. Like, and then we heard about all these guys who were auditioning. The famous stories we heard about Joe Pesci, and then we heard about this other guy who was up against Joe Pesci, Joe Rocco. It was the famous Joe Rocco. And then Joe Rocco was going to get the part. But it was over a year. And I went back to school. And then my father got a call one day, and they said, Mike got a little part as the soda clerk.
Right.
Something. But I think before even he got a call, and then I got a call, and they said they were going to maybe use me. And I remember I came out of the shower, and my father was all excited, I didn't really have any lines or anything, and then I just see Mike. He did the scene at the pool. We may not actually see him in there, but he's a soda like the guy who was the clerk at the pool,
right?
As a soda jerk. And but I watched De Niro and Captain Moriarty, but I had never been on Mike's father was a cop man, so I had never really been on a movie set in my life, and this guy was like. Like two of our heroes because, at that stage we were, it was a different thing. It was a big deal, like, because I saw him in Bang the Drum Slowly, and then I saw him in Streets and Taxi Driver and The Godfather Part 2. So, besides like Pacino and Dustin Hoffman, he was like, big hero and then I remember we were on a set, and we were sitting there, and I remember for days they give me a bad haircut, and they put me in a 40 thing, and De Niro came on the set, and he didn't like the way my collar was, and he made them change my shirt and collar.
What didn't you like about it?
It was wrong. It was too loose. It wasn't right, and he said it's not right, and they fixed it. And we were just at the table, said, "Hey, Champ, how you doing? Hey, Jake, how's it going?" And we were laughing, and with Joe Pesci and stuff. But I was so nervous. I remember I was like, but it was like 3 days long. It took them 3 days because they had to shoot this whole big sequence. So I was waiting around a lot. And then later on, I got to know, when I did Danny and the Deep Blue Sea, he came to see the play, Bob. And then I auditioned for Marty, and I did Color of Money, and then I worked with Bob a lot, and I worked on a lot of movies that Marty executive produced, and I almost, I was in a conversation with the Goodfellas, but then it was like, then they used Joe, because I was, he had the whole relationship, and Joe was great. But I worked a lot with, I know Bob really well now, and I know Marty pretty well too, and he's actually helped me on the movies I directed, but it was a really huge, and then I saw the movie, of course, and we were in the movie, and it was like, I couldn't believe I was even in it for a blip.
Right.
And of course, the movie was like, I remember we went the first day to see it, and I don't know if it was the premiere, but no, it was at the Sutton. And then I went a lot of times to see it, and it was obviously the movie, stands up, for the work they did, the cinematography and the sound and the acting, but they worked on it for years, and I remember, hearing all the stories that they found this guy, Joe Pesci, who had retired, all that stuff, but it was really, and Bob remembers the whole thing, because he never forgot that we did that scene. And so it's weird that I've become kind of friendly with them over the years. And Marty introduced me to Francesco Rosi when I did The Truce, and showed me all his films, and he's helped me when I did Mac, and when I showed him, when he was in the jury when I did Illuminata and Khan, and so I've done all these things. But still, I remember that, and it was a different time in movies. It was almost like the end of an era.
Right.
We didn't really know that because it was United Artists, and it was when they did Raging Bull and Heaven's Gate, they went bankrupt. And once that company, that kind of changed the whole movie, industry. But it was a different time, where it was sort of the end of that golden era of everything. And but it was my first experience.
So De Niro's performance is considered a benchmark in acting and a benchmark in method acting. And there's no right or wrong way to answer this. I just want to hear you, if you could articulate, what is method acting?
I mean, he studied with Stella Adler, and I think she really helped him, use, make things personal and use his imagination. And, be able to work physically on things. And he's a real student of Stella Adler's. And whatever her technique is, which is documented very well, is very different than maybe Lee Strasberg's, and also different than Sandy Meisner's, But I think what people were all doing, where they were delving, into themselves and also their imagination, and and I think, in his particular case in that thing, it's a very, he trained years. He didn't get all pumped up, really. He trained really years. And I think basically, after he did that big weight gain, because he was interested how athletes blow up, that kind of ruined it for every actor, because after that, they were like, well, I got to really gain the weight. I can't have the fat suit and stuff like that. And so it changed things. He kind of, it just changed things that way. But I think he was just really doing it just because he saw how athletes were so, in such fantastic shape, and then they blow up so much. And it was very bad, I know, for his health.
Right.
Very bad for his health. And, but I think the acting in that movie is really between the characters, not just him alone. I mean, Joe is every bit as good as him, and goes head to head with him. Kathy is great in the movie. And I really do think you see a lot of teamwork in that movie. And I think it's not just a, tour de force type of thing. And but just I think there's a lot of just great dedication to something. And you see that now, but it's not always other piece, and that is other piece.
Right.
The other people, it's other piece. And I don't think it's like done to just be, flashy or this or that. And I think, that they had a whole thing going between them, him and Marty, and Joe certainly was, he's fantastic, in the movie. When you saw him, you were like, who is this guy? Right. And you couldn't do that today. I mean, in a way, they were kind of brilliant. Like, here's a guy who's a known guy playing another character, playing against an unknown actor and actress, which makes him look much more believable as that character.
Right,
Instead of playing against, if Harvey would have played it, which I think they thought, then it would have been like, oh, it's Harvey and Bob again, from Mean Streets. But this, you made it seem much more like Jake, because these other people seem so real. And I think it's very hard to do nowadays.
That's a good point.
To do that. You can't really do that nowadays. And I just think the nature of it is, and that makes the well-known person look fresh. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I just think, it just reminded me, that movie reminds me of going to acting class. And I remember I was understudy in Death of a Salesman with Dustin Hoffman. And Dustin Hoffman, when he saw the movie, he said that was like going back to class, watching a lot of those scenes. And it was. I studied, like, when just got Bob Modico, who was Sandy Meisner's, he studied with Sandy, and he was his assistant, and it was like when you watch a great scene in the class, and you were like, people were just doing it to do it, not for money, not for fame, and you kind of feel that in the movie, of when those guys are, they're really working with each other really well.
Right.
And I know that Marty, he was sick before he did it, and he killed himself on it. And I know that he didn't want to finish ever editing the movie. They had to basically pull it away from him at the last minute, to get it in the theater. Right. He was still fudging with one of the lines or something. But they were definitely trying to push it. Also, people didn't do a lot of interviews in those days, so you didn't really know who the people were, and it made you kind of go with it more.
Right.
They didn't talk about it very much.
John, well, I don't want to keep you. I appreciate it. You're. I mean, I always tell you this. You're my guy. I just have so much respect for you. So I appreciate you doing this.
My pleasure.
And hopefully I'll see you soon, John. And enjoy the holidays.
Okay.
All right. But
you too.
Sincerely,
okay.
John, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Okay. Nice to hear your voice, Mike.
I'll talk to you soon, John.
Talk to you soon.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Great Sneakers is the first sneaker brand from Brooklyn, New York. Greats is a direct-to-the-consumer sneaker brand that's redefining the sneaker business. They eliminate the middleman to save the customer money by selling to you at Greats.com. I'm telling you, these sneakers are comfortable, stylish, and made with premium materials. Check out all the sneakers at Greats.com, and you could save 20% off when you use the promo code RAP, R-A-P. That's RAP, R-A-P. Go to Greats.com. Guys like Marshawn Lynch and Kevin Durant also endorse Great Sneakers, all right? Marshawn Lynch just came out with the Beast Mode sneaker made exclusively by Greats.com, all right? Made by Great Sneakers. Go to Greats.com and save 20% by using the promo code RAP. Trust me, stylish, comfortable, low-key, flashy but not too flashy. Greats.com. Go to Greats.com. All right, this is the I Am Rapaport podcast, all Raging Bull episode, and somebody who a lot of the people that I'm interviewing, I just intuitively know that they love Raging Bull. So one of the funniest, sort of underrated, underappreciated people who I'm a fan of is Jim Breuer, and I've always loved all his stuff and all his impressions, and he does the best Joe Pesci impression. I've never heard him actually speak on Raging Bull, but again, I just pretty sure that he's into it, and can get his impression of the film, what it means to him, what he likes about it, what he doesn't like about it, and this, that, and the other thing. So we're calling him live right now. Comedian, actor, funny motherfucker, Jim Breuer. All right, this is the I Am Rapaport podcast. Speaking to Jim Breuer, and I've never actually spoken to you about Raging Bull, but I just intuitively guessed when I was deciding to do this episode that you would be somebody who loves the movie, and then checking with you, I'm right. So, what is it about the movie? That you said to me that you said it's one of your favorite movies, if not your favorite movie. Talk to me about the movie. I've talked enough, Jim. I'm sure you got a lot of things to say about Raging Bull. So talk to me about it and what it means to you and what's exciting about it, what's funny about it, and everything in between.
There were so many things that resonated with me. I was a kid, and I had an Italian nanny, so the De Niro role was very much like the guy that I called Grandpa, who, at the end of that relationship, actually got violent with their at home with my nanny. So that ended really bad. I remember being a kid. So they were, and where I grew up, even though it was Long Island, people don't think of it. There was a lot of that.
Right.
So that was the first thing that really, and I would find myself laughing at De Niro because when something's so real life, I instantly crack. I don't know why. I just crack up. To me, it was an impression on everyone that I grew up with around me. It was brilliant. And I remember going to school because I was kind of too young to see the movie. And I remember, and I told my dad, too. My dad wasn't a big movie guy. I said, Dad, you got to watch this movie. Mom's not going to like it, but you got to watch this movie. And that became my all-time. And that movie made me start watching De Niro and Pesci. That, to this day, I still say those are the two best acting roles that have ever resonated with me. Probably in history. I mean, Goodfellas is great, and so many other movies, Nicholson, but so many little scenes in that movie still stick out in my head, almost bigger than the first time I saw Star Wars. So many scenes. The scene with you want your steak? Bring it over. You want your steak? Just a slow rising, boiling in him. Bring it over. How long I gotta wait? You want your fucking steak? Bring it over! And then Pesci comes over. He's like, hey, she's yelling in the background. It's aggravation. I mean, how long you gonna put? You can't. It's aggravation. You can't do this. And the scene would hit me in the face. What? The fuck is wrong? I'm not gonna punch you in the face. And the punching in the face scene and Scorsese, just a little scene. When they're waiting for the one fight and they're sitting in the room and it's right before Tommy and all them leave, and he sees right before that. It was when Pesci's ordering the food.
Yeah.
Come on, you gotta eat something. You want to eat. But that scene, it's so simple, but it's just captivating. De Niro's just prancing like a tiger. There's so many things going on with him. It was, and even to this day, I watched it again the other night. I'm sitting there with my wife, and she goes, was he really like that? I mean, I go, was he really cheating? I go, well, I think that's the brilliance of this. Scorsese makes you feel what De Niro was feeling, and should he hit her? No, but there was so much shit going on. His pride was taken away, and Pesci just is his brother, and he's looking after him, but he's also knows to get to the championship, he's got to sell his soul. Oh my God, there's a lot of shit in that movie. I could talk about that movie for hours and hours and hours, and I understand all views when I watch that movie. Even you feel bad for LaMotta. Oh, the scene when he breaks down in the jail cell.
Right.
He's just finally, it all came down. You're so stupid. You're so stupid. Why are you so stupid?
what do you think it is that because I think men and women look at this movie differently, and for a character to be an abusive, self-destructive motherfucker, yet I'm doing a podcast about it. You obviously feel is enthusiastic about the movie and as the character. It's not like we're glorifying it, but what do you think it is about men that we're relating to somebody that's so, on paper, you'd be like, well, why would you want to watch this movie? Why are you even discussing this movie? This guy's a fucking scumbag. He beats his wife. Like, what do you think it is? It's because it's not like we're like thinking like, this is the Lone Ranger, but we're sitting here talking about it and obviously there's humor. So what do you think it is about men specifically? Because you're a man, I'm a man, and I'm trying to get woman's point of view on it. But what do you think it is about men that we relate to this character and feel some sort of compassion?
It's a full-blown, I think it's a respect thing. All a man wants in life is to know he's respected and that he's, it's like when I'm gone on the road and I come back, appreciated and respected. Those are the two biggest things that are very needy for a man. That's what that's how a man is fulfilled. He feels respected, and when you watch that movie, the raging Jake LaMotta is a fighter. That's all he knows. He's just part of him is a dumb ox, but he's not really a dumb ox. He's just trying to get by and life. That's what he is. That's what he. But in his small world, at the end, they do disrespect him. They do shit behind his back. They do make him do things that it's like me or you, and they're like, listen, you want to be Michael, you want to play the big role?
Right.
We got to play this role. I don't want to play that role. Yeah, well, you want to star with this guy? You got to play this role. And it's so, you feel like a whore. You feel humiliated. You feel degraded. It's embarrassing. The people around you are like, why would you do something like that? And
right.
It's just a horrible fear. I've done it multiple times. It's the most disturbing, disgusting feeling. So when the people involved now are technically your wife, your brother, and the tightest people that he trusts the most, who's it? You're alone. You can see where the frustration lies and where he starts losing his mind. And they're controlling him, and Tommy's controlling. It's not a good place to be in life. And I felt his fury. I felt his anger. I probably would have never done what he did because that's just not me. But I felt all of it. Even when he felt horrible after beating the shit out of his brother.
Right. That's
one of the most unbelievable scenes. And she's chasing him down the street. Stop it! You fucking animal! it was he walks in and bang, bang, in front of his kids, and he's pouncing them. And oh my God! But you feel it. You feel it when he goes. That scene right before that goes down. To me, that describes the whole feeling of his world coming down when he goes, well, what happened down the Copa? Yeah, well, I didn't tell you what happened. He just fucking lied to him, right? I didn't tell you. It was nothing. And he mouthed off. I slapped him around. That was it. We showed Tommy. It's over. And he knows. He's just looking at him, and he knows. And you as the viewer know. And he goes, did it have to do with Vicky? No, I told you. Don't you think I would have told you if it had something to do with Vicky? It was fucking easy. I slapped him around. I bet you fucking hit the thing. It was it.
Joey, I'm asking you a lot of questions. You're not answering. I'm going to ask you again. Did you or did you not?
I'm not going to ask you. That's a sick question. You're a sick fuck, and I ain't that sick. I'm going to ask you.
You fuck my wife?
Oh. Where you get your fucking balls being enough to ask me? I'm your brother. Where you get your fucking balls? Ask me a question.
I'm going to ask you again. Did you or did you not?
And then he goes, that's a sick question. You're a sick fuck, and I ain't that sick. I'll ask you. You know, I feel bad for you. You know that? I feel bad. You should get help. You should worry about your weight, you fat fuck, and you won't have problems upstairs. You take it on me like a fuck.
And you know what's crazy about that movie is that I saw it young too. I saw it 10, so I didn't know what was going on, but I responded.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
on an emotional level, and I don't think even an adult at the time, I couldn't imagine an adult the first viewing, taking that in as funny. But after you watch it, you know, I don't know how many times I started to realize that it was funny, but, you know, one of the things that keeps coming up is the humor of the movie. And I think you have to sort of be desensitized from the violence of it, and then you keep watching it, and then because the tension is so palpable, and I think the humor comes from when somebody's so frustrated and so overly, like, I mean, he's so dead-faced. Like, if this was a comedy, like, this is the best, the straightest. Like, Jake is totally straight. Like, he's the straightest of the straight man ever in terms of comedy. And all this shit going around, like, when you're watching it, he's so fucking angry that it becomes funny.
So fucking funny. Even Pesci, with his angles that Scorsese had on Pesci, was always like from above.
Right.
So it never was from like eye to eye. A lot of times you would see it from above, and he would capture his fucking look, his twisted look, and you can see everything going on in his fucking head. That one scene where he goes, what's so hard? Here, give me a face. Here, touch my face. They slaps him, and then he falls down on the floor. Is that so fucking hard? You fucking slow down, and then you get what you want. Then you go on the pub. What's so hard about that? He pinches his fucking face. But what you were saying, Michael, I'm sitting there in the bed the other day with my wife, and that scene with when he's fat and he's trying to fix the TV, and there's such brilliant acting because he's breathing heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I was fucking howling. I was belly laughing. And my wife's going, what are you laughing at? I go, dude, it's fucking funny. He's fat. He's fixing the TV. His head's in it. He's just looking at him. He's dying to ask him the question. It's fucking funny. Man, son, what happened down there, Cole? Fucking chewing the sandwich. It's so even when he's cocky and he's dressed a certain way and he's walking down the street and he pulls his belt, he holds on to his belt buckle. The way oh my God, I'm howling with laughter. It's so funny. I guess because I knew that guy. I know him.
I hear you. Well, this is good shit, Jim. I appreciate it, and you know, I don't want to take. I mean, I literally could talk to you because you're as crazy about this movie as me, and there's a lot of us out there. So you know, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and I got to tell you, you're one of the only few that I've heard the word comedy come out, because to me, it's one of the funniest movies ever. I mean, it's fucking brilliant, an emotional roller coaster, but there's some scenes in there that make me belly laugh. And I'm glad you're just as nuts as I am, man. All the best to you, and thanks for asking me to do this, man. Big fan, big props, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and unless this is not dated, then just have a good one.
Hey,
have a good one, you fucking mutt you.
Hello, you listen to me? Hello, I hear you breathing. Larry! Who's an animal, Larry? You
Your
animal?
mother's an animal, you fucking...
You son of a bitch.
Animal.
Shut up, you filthy animal.
I'm gonna take that dog, I'm gonna kill it. You hear me, Larry? Larry!
This is Adam Carolla. It's the 35th anniversary of Raging Bull.
Wow.
The film.
Glad you said that.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to talk to you about, like, what do you think, I mean, as a performer, as an actor, as an admirer of film, as now a filmmaker yourself, talk to me about Raging Bull in terms of the context, you know, like, just to sort of preface it, you know, it was voted the best film of the 80s. Mm-hmm. As far as I'm concerned, it was like a benchmark of acting. I don't think that De Niro's performance has ever been duplicated because I don't think another production will allow an actor to start one way, shut down for 6 months, and then gain weight within the same movie, which is what they did for Raging Bull. So I mean,
Well, it's funny. I was watching that movie the other day. I love that movie. I love everything about that movie. I love the comedy in it. There's a lot of comedy in it.
Talk about that.
Well, I mean, Pesci and De Niro are great, and they have these great scenes that are born from all this tension. And, like the scene where he's telling him to punch him, and he's like, I'm not going to punch you. You're my brother. Why would I punch you? And then by the end of the scene, he's trying to kill him. Mm-hmm. That's a great comedy premise.
Right.
But that is done completely dry.
Right.
Nobody's winking at the camera. There's no smiling going on.
Right.
It's like the purest form of comedy.
Right.
It's an actual thing that's taking place, which is like a really pure comedy concept, which is very beginning of the scene is, I would never do this thing to you. You're my brother. I wouldn't even do it to a stranger, much less my own brother. And then by the end of the scene, I'm trying to kill you.
Right.
And it comedically is a very strong choice.
Right.
So I love that. I love all the comedy in the movie that you may not even get or understand. I love when De Niro tells his wife to get out of the room, and then Pesci looks at his wife and goes, "Yeah, what are you looking at? Get out of here!"
Right,
You
right.
can tell he's just kind of doing what his big brother
right.
just did. And lots of good subtle stuff. I was thinking about that movie because it was on the other day, and I was like realizing that everyone's like, well, he had to get into shape, and they shot all that shit, and then he got fat, and they shot all that shit, and then I was picturing the scene where he had the Gennaro fight coming up, and he was calling him up, stop eating so much, you fat fuck, yeah, you gotta make weight, and he does this thing where he's like, look, you make weight, you beat the crap out of this guy. You don't make weight, and all these other guys have been ducking you are going to have to come out, but it doesn't hurt your reputation.
Right. If you win, you win. If you lose, you still win.
Right.
Just get down to 155 pounds, you fat fuck. You stop eating.
Right. And I was sitting looking at it, and I was like, yeah, he's 175 pounds here, or 170 pounds. Did they film this in between? Mm-hmm. Did they go get this scene in between the in-shape scenes and on the way up? Mm-hmm. They must have got it when he was on the way up.
Right. No, I know what you mean.
Because he wouldn't have wanted to go down again.
Right. He started, obviously, at the best shape. And I know what you mean, because throughout the film, he starts gaining a little bit of weight. He's out of shape.
Right.
And then later on, he's, a fat slob.
Right.
And all of it's without a fat suit. And it's like, I don't think like any production will ever, like, that'll never be achieved again. And at the time, it's still like, it was like, as far as like an actor, like, you're like, fuck, man, I mean, that's a fucking performance. Like, you get to do all these things, you get to explore, all these different emotions, and then physically actually have the time to physically change, to start at two extremes, to start at really fit and in shape and become a boxer, and then at the end become this fat fuck with no fat suit, and it's just like it's just sort of a benchmark, you know what I mean? And then the direction and the camera movement and everything about it,
it was really, it was too much too soon for us to fully appreciate and fully absorb.
Yeah.
It was like you were a 9-year-old watching Fantasia or something, and you just couldn't appreciate the artistry in it because we were like too immature, too much. It's literally a movie that in 1980 we couldn't fully absorb.
Right.
I mean, people are like, oh, yeah, that's a good movie, but, Mannequin's a pretty good movie, too.
Right.
Like, it's like, no. This is not even on the same planet as any other movie that's really even come before it. And we almost felt like it's like you're a dog, and you tell the dog, don't you like the Kobe beef? And the dog goes, no, I like the dog food because it's got like guts and giblets and shit. And you're like, but eat the Kobe. It can't appreciate it.
Right.
It's like its palate's not good enough. It actually thinks that the burger patty that you just slid out of your Burger King bun is better than the Kobe beef because it's not good enough.
Yeah.
We weren't good enough in 1980 to really absorb that movie.
The I Am Rapaport podcast is sponsored by the American Giant Clothing Company, AmericanGiant.com. Go on there. Sweatshirts, rough, well-made, comfortable, breathable, warm. In the winter, you need yourself a nice American Giant zip-up hoodie or a pullover hoodie. American Giant. Go to AmericanGiant.com. Check out the T-shirts, the sweatshirts, the sweatpants. American Giant. All right, this is the I Am Rapaport All Raging Bull podcast, and I'm calling up the dudes from the Dirty Sports podcast, young bulls of the podcast world, and see what they have to say about the damn thing.
Hello.
Hey, this is Michael Rapaport. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. How's it going? Who is this?
This is Joe Praino, and I got Andy next to me.
We're doing an All Raging Bull podcast. I've had some really special people speak on the film. Tell me whatever you're thinking, whatever you love, whatever you passionate about the movie.
Well, for me, being a guy from New York and my dad an Italian from the Bronx, when the first time I ever watched Raging Bull, I was like, this is how people are there. Like, it was so true to life. That's how everybody talks. It was so real. The first time I ever watched it, I was immediately engulfed in the story from, the first scene where I was like, yeah, I'm on board. This is what his life was. So, and then obviously it's just such a great movie. I think, probably, in my opinion, De Niro's best role of all time, which is really saying something.
Right. One of the things that I've been coming across doing this podcast, interviewing different people, is that the movie, the way men look at the movie and the way women look at the movie is differently, because obviously it's such a macho film, and it's not like Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull is the Lone Ranger.
That macho, it resonated with me so well because I can relate, especially all those scenes with De Niro and Pesci and the ball busting. I mean, my brothers, I'm 34 now. My oldest brother's 41. I mean, we go home and it's like we're kids again. It's the same shit. And to me, that's a huge sticking point of the movie because those are real conversations.
Right.
There's nothing fake about that, and the interaction and the fighting and. When I go back to Ohio for Christmas, it's going to be the same thing where it's going to get, it might get physical. I mean, that's how it is.
And what about the boxing of it all? Like Jake LaMotta, obviously I think the probably the truest thing about the film, not to say that it's not true, but obviously they elaborated on things and they combined characters and all that stuff. But as far as like boxing and where boxing is today and what boxing meant to culturally back then, in the 40s and 50s, 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, boxing was a primary sport. It was like a mainstream sport. Now it's almost, it's behind UFC, and I feel like it's depleting. But talk about, like boxing and shit, because you guys are sports dudes and stuff like that. So, speak on boxing and Jake LaMotta and that whole. I never saw him fight. I'm 40. My father saw him fight when he was a kid. He went to the Garden. He saw him fight Sugar Ray Robinson. But the whole boxing aspect of it to me, because to me, the boxing scenes are the most stylized, and I don't think any film has ever really depicted a boxing match, because it's so hard to do because actors can't really get punched in the face. But you felt like you're in the ring with him, and you felt like you're feeling although it's stylized and it doesn't look real at all, it feels real. Like the feeling you get from those boxing scenes is real, but it doesn't look real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And the last fight he has with Sugar Ray is like the blood is so over the top where you're watching the crowd react like, oh my God. And you're at home doing the same thing. I think there's only like 10 or 12 minutes of boxing in the movie, but some of those scenes are so powerful and you feel they're so strongly shot in terms of seeing somebody get hit.
Right.
That in the end, you feel like it is like a whole movie about boxing.
Right.
When I was a kid growing up in Westchester in New York, I actually boxed as a kid, and Jake LaMotta's cousin was my trainer.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so one of his cousins, who I think is famous for inventing the chipwich, his son was Tommy LaMotta, was my boxing coach. So that's why I knew of Jake LaMotta when I was like 10, 12 years old. He's like, yeah, my cousin Jake LaMotta, and immediately, like, we all went home after taking training and like sat down and watched Raging Bull. And then, like, as kids, we're doing, which is like 10-year-olds probably shouldn't be watching this movie in the first place,
right.
But we were so into it. In a way, I feel like after Raging Bull, every De Niro role has like a little bit of LaMotta in it. Like it almost seems like late, especially like the late end of De Niro's career now. There's a little bit of stuff that you see in Jake LaMotta that you didn't see before he took that role, but now it's kind of like he's doing LaMotta in Meet the Parents, and he's doing it in Goodfellas. Like he's doing it, like I feel like it's now his middle is just like a LaMotta light.
That's funny. I mean, for me, the thing about the movie, I mean, there's so many things about the movie, but just the performance, the De Niro performance, I know what you're saying. I mean, I think that for somebody like De Niro, his performances, that they're so, that we watch them over and over and we're mesmerized, and you rewind them and you'll watch a scene over and you'll YouTube a scene and you'll, they're so iconic, and there's just something so charismatic about what he does, along with all the technical expertise, as an actor. I mean, he's just so good. He just has there's like, for me, like when I articulate like actors, like every actor has different energy. You know what I mean? Like acting is like energy. Like there's the De Niro energy. There's the, Christopher Walken's energy. There's, good actors have energy. I have energy. Bad actors have energy. Every actor brings a part of themselves to the roles. And I think, sometimes like I've had conversations with people where they'll be like, well, he's just, he does the same thing. And, and I mean, that's ridiculous, because if you put the body of work, I mean, he's been so diverse. But the thing about that film and that acting, just his acting in particular, is that it was like craftsmanship, charisma, and sort of exposing of himself, all in one thing. It's like the weight gain, so the method acting of it all, the drama, the looking like a boxer. He felt like a boxer, then he feels like a fat fuck. The way they changed his face. I mean, it just was, every single thing clicked, and every single thing clicked with Scorsese. Every single thing clicked with the sound. The sound of the movie is such a big part of it. Like if you watch the fight scenes, like I was saying earlier about, like, you feel like you're in the ring, but like there's like all these rumblings, and like even like when the scenes when he's alone in the house with Vicky, you'll hear like when they're fighting, like you'll hear, like if you listen to the film, if you just listen to it, like the sound design is incredible. Like there's like animal sounds, and the punches are all different, and the crowd and the screaming and the flashbulbs are so prominent. I mean, I think everything about that film just clicked. Like they were working on all cylinders. Everybody was working on all cylinders, and it was from the head down. And this was sort of a two-headed monster, because I think Scorsese and De Niro were really, they were young, they were locked in. I mean, the movie, it's 35 years later. I'm doing a podcast about it. Everyone loves it. Everyone talks about it. But when the movie came out, it wasn't well received. It wasn't like some blockbuster film. And as much as I love the movie, whenever I go to sit down to watch Raging Bull, it's not like you're going to sit down to watch, Meet the Parents or Vacation or any kind of comedy. It's a hard movie to watch. Even after seeing it, I've probably seen it over 100 times, in pieces or in full. It's not an easy movie to absorb. It's disturbing. But technically, just the camera work in the boxing scenes, I've tried to break them down for 20 years. I've watched it, and like you still see, like if you watch it, like the way the camera moves, it's poetry, it's perfection. And I just think that, you know, with Pesci was perfect, Kathy Moriarty was perfect, every stitch of clothing was perfect, every piece of music they used was perfect. It's a perfect film. That doesn't make it an easy film, but it's a perfect film by people, you know, working at the highest level, you know, at the top of their game and still being hungry, you know, like, not that they're not now, but I mean, when you're young, you could, you know, it's just like, you know, those guys were young titans, they were young lions, and they were fucking hungry, and they were just, you know, they made this movie, and you know, it's just something special. But I mean, if you put out Raging Bull today, you'd be lucky if it made it into a theater. You know, that's not.
I was gonna say, I don't think they could do it today. I mean, it's just they couldn't. I think there'd be too much PC bullshit, and there'd be so many different angles that people would be complaining about. I think it came out at the perfect time. Yeah, it came out at the perfect time, and you know, I don't know if you know this, but like the film.
When they did the best film of the 80s, Raging Bull won the best. Like when the critics at the end of the decade, they chose Raging Bull as the best film of the 80s, but it lost to Ordinary People for the Oscar. Same thing with Goodfellas, which is not I think Goodfellas is a flashier film. Not to say one's better than the other. They're two different films. They're two masterworks, you know. But I think Goodfellas is a little bit easier to absorb. Even though Goodfellas isn't a fucking, you know, it's not a day in the park. You know, it's a tough film too. But you know, Goodfellas kind of makes Raging Bull look like an easy film to absorb. I mean, Raging Bull, it doesn't have the, you know, Goodfellas has the pace, and it moves, and it's quick, and it has voiceover, and it's, you know, it's easier to absorb. If I mean, it's not like again, it's not like, you know, watching Goodfellas is like having an ice cream cone on a spring day. But anyway, you know, so I appreciate you guys, talking to me about it. I'm a fan of what you guys are doing, and you know, in the new year, I would love to come on your show, and we could talk shit about sports, and we could start with my guy Odell Beckham and what went on yesterday, because I know you guys are passionate fans.
Oh yeah, we're about to actually do ours, Michael. We're going to get into a good hour and a half discussion on what the fuck happened yesterday.
Hey, listen, I don't know what the fuck happened, but I think that's going to be a lesson learned from him. I mean, I think, you know, there's so much going on. He's such a star, and he's so great.
I just hope at one point he turned to Norman and he was like, "You never got me down. You never got me down."
That's good. That's right. You never got me down, Norm.
You never got me down, man.
Danny Aiello on Raging Bull.
Bobby was over the house with Bang the Drum Slowly at the when I lived in the project, and someone gave me a Paramount. They gave me a script and a book. Pete Savage was the man's name. He was the co-writer of Raging Bull. And they grabbed me because they knew I had just done Bang the Drum Slowly. They didn't know me from Adam. I get called up to Paramount. I'm saying, holy shit, they're saying they're doing a boxing film. I think I'm going to be in it. I think they're asking me to do something. Am I going to play the fucking Raging Bull? You know, I was all excited. So naturally, they were using me. I had no idea that I was being used. So I brought the book to my house because I knew Bobby was at the house. I said, Bobby, I don't know how to do this. I really don't know how to do this. People asked me to present this to you because they knew we were close. I'll apologize beforehand for doing this. I don't know if you're going to be upset or anything. But I didn't know what to do. But I didn't want you to lose out. And I said to him, the reason I'm giving you this book, if Rocky Graziano's movie was being done, somebody up there likes me. If it was being done today, they would ask you to do it, Robert. You would be perfect and you would kill. This is tantamount to what that book was. Right. He said, box? I don't box. I said, well, it's more of a character study than it is a boxing. It's a boxing film, yes, but it's a character study. He took the book, all right, and he takes it to Italy with him, because he's going to Italy to the turn of the century Italians he wants to talk to, because he's about to do Godfather 2. So he goes over there. Now keep in mind, Paramount were calling me every day, inviting me, buying me lunch and everything. Suddenly, Bobby's in Italy. I can't get into that fucking office if I had a key. They didn't answer the phone. I'm talking about Paramount, so I knew something went down. And what went down was Bobby accepted it. He was working with De Laurentiis at the time. Now, Bobby comes back. They don't do it with De Laurentiis. A couple of years go by, and they do it with Marty Scorsese and Winkler.
Right, Erwin Winkler and...
and the other kid. And they decide to do it.
All right, this is the I Am Rapaport podcast. Calling up the Bronx Bull, the Raging Bull. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake LaMotta. All right, it's ringing.
Hi, you there?
Denise, how you doing? It's Michael Rapaport.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm okay. I'm in the lobby. I'm going to go on up and just hold on. Stay on the phone with me, and we'll go get him right now, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, Jack. Michael Rapaport, the actor, on the phone. He's been trying to get to you for the last week or so. And he's going to ask you just a few questions about Raging Bull because it's the anniversary. Is it which anniversary?
It's the 35th anniversary of the movie.
Yeah, the 35th anniversary of Raging Bull, Jake. So he's going to do an interview with you. Can you hear? Michael, speak to him now.
Jake, how you doing, champ?
Hello, Michael.
How you feeling, champ?
With my fingers.
He said, how are you doing, not how are you feeling?
Oh, I thought he said, how do you feel? I told my fingers.
Ha, ha, ha. Listen, I just wanted to tell you, first of all, I'm a humongous fan of your career when you were fighting. I first heard about you when my father, he actually was at the Garden when you fought Robinson in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
It's a really long time ago. Well, you've had a really long, great, interesting, crazy life, haven't you?
Yeah, I guess so.
So I'm doing this sort of review celebration of the movie Raging Bull.
Did you like the movie?
I love the movie. The reason why I love the movie...
The Arrow was great. The Arrow was greater than that movie.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
He did pretty good.
Yeah, he's the best, don't you think?
I think he's the best actor of all time.
Yeah, I agree. Jake, do you follow boxing at all anymore?
I don't really follow boxing. I see it once in a while on TV.
I just want to let you know I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm glad you're doing good. I can't believe you're 94, and I hope you live another 15.
93. I'm gonna be 93.
93.
Don't make me a year older.
All right. I won't make you a year older. Sorry. I don't want no problems with you, Jake. And I wish you a good holiday, all right, Jake? I wish you a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. God bless you. Have a good Christmas. Thank you.
You too, Jake.